What's going on, everyone on YouTube land here? I hope y'all are doing well. I'm Larry the Batman fan. So, today we are going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch, as you know, is a very good system. Um, in fact, I think it's an improvement over the the Wii U and the Wii. The Wii, I think, has a little bit more appeal than the Wii U. But both systems, to be honest with you, had a lot of garbage, a lot of shovelware games on the system that I'm not interested in playing. Um, the Wii U, I have a very small library. I look at it right now, it's only about 17 or 18 games, I think. I don't have a ton of Wii U games because there's nothing really worth picking up. I picked up Monster Hunter 3 a few months ago, and that was the only game that I picked up as of within that time frame. There's 4 or 5 other titles on the Wii U that I would like to get, but overall, not a ton that I want to pick up. And the Wii has around 20 or 25 more games that I'm interested in picking up, and then I would never go for a full set on the Wii or the Wii U. Honestly, I don't go for full sets on any of my games or consoles because I know there's some crap games on every system, ones that I'm not really interested in playing. Plus, there's a array of sports games for each console that you buy, and I'm really not into the sports genre of games personally, so that's why I don't go for full libraries. But the main reason why we're here today is to talk about the new Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo Switch 2, which is basically the sequel system to the original Nintendo Switch. Let's just hope Nintendo does this right and actually does support good games and that there's less shovelware because we don't want any shovelware going on. You know, Nintendo really had to have learned their lesson by now by making their own risk in games and stuff. Because when they did that shit, what happened was we ended up with a lot of bad games. Okay? And personally, that's why they weren't selling. Especially when it came to the Wii. Because the Wii had a lot of games that suck. You know, that people are not interested in buying. Or if they did buy it, they bought it because they didn't know any better. And then when they played it, they're like, oh, this game sucks. I hate this game. You know? It just wasn't worth their time to invest the money into that. They invested in groceries and, you know, clothes and other things like that that wasn't gaming related stuff. So when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, I just hope that there isn't going to be a lot of shovelware on the system. They did pretty good with the Switch, I'd say. There's quite a few Switch games. I think there's around probably 1,300 games already. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I think there's around that amount. And there's a lot of good ones. I think the worst title on the Switch is probably Shaq Fu Realm Reborn. That game sucks. I mean, I would never buy that game personally because I know it sucks. Same with the first game. Excuse me, on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. That game really sucks. It was one of the worst fighting games ever made. Um, so that's just one thing that I wanted to throw out there. Hold on. Sorry, my throat's a little dry. That's why when I film these videos, I always have something to drink. I just have water, but I make sure I have something to drink because, especially if it's a long video, I get thirsty. Um, so another thing that Nintendo Switch 2 that I'm seeing that is good is they actually are going to have a Mario game on launch day, which was great because the Nintendo Switch, when the Nintendo Switch came out in 2017, it had no Mario upon launch day. It had I Am Setsuna, which was like an RPG game, The Binding of Isaac, Snipper Clips, Nintendo 1-2 Switch, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and there was a Bomberman game upon launch day. And there was about 6 or 7 other titles. It was about 12 or 13 games, or 14 games, around that range, 12 to 15 games, I think. But it wasn't, there was no Mario. There was no Super Mario Odyssey, no Super Mario Kart, or I mean Mario Kart 8. There was nothing. No Paper Marios, none of that. It wasn't until like a year later when we got a Mario game, and that was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which was basically a revamped version of the one that was on the Wii U, but they improved the battle mode in the game. They improved the balloon battle because they took the balloon battle out of the Wii U version. It's only in the Switch version, so that was a plus. I think they actually added 2 extra battle modes in the Nintendo Switch version that was not in the Wii U version, so that was a plus for that game. Um, so they're doing it right this time. You know, they realized they fucked up the first time without a Mario game in the launch day, and a lot of people want that. They want the Mario stuff. So that was good on Nintendo's behalf to have a Mario game. Now, I will say for the price range of some of these games at $80, it's just not worth the money. Because they have the audacity to re-release Zelda Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is on the Nintendo Switch currently, which you can buy for around the $40 range, I think, for the Breath of the Wild. I mean, that was a launch title, you know, and honestly, I think that that could be a little bit cheaper by now, maybe $20 or something, but they're never gonna lower it to that price because it's a premium title on the Nintendo Switch. You know, actually it started on the Wii U and then it just got ported to the Nintendo Switch. But now they've decided to port that over to the Nintendo Switch too, along with Tears of the Kingdom. And I did see that they're re-releasing Bravely Default for the Nintendo Switch 2, which is nice because you get to see it on an actual TV. So that I give them credit for, but if you have it already on the 3DS, it's not really worth picking up because it's the same exact game for the console. It's just that it's not on a handheld console. It's on an actual game console that you stick the thing in there and you can play it on your flat screen TV. There were some other games that I saw they mentioned. I think there's a Donkey Kong game coming out, and I think they're working on a Metroid Prime 4, which would be nice if they did get that out there. And there were some other titles that they mentioned. I don't know them off the top of my head, unfortunately. I could leave that in the comments section below. But I will say that the $80 price mark is just ridiculous. For some of these games that they're releasing, they're going to have them at $70. Some are at $60, and some of them are at $80. It's like, do you want to pay $80 for Mario Kart World? I don't think so. No. Honestly, it is nice that some of the systems are coming with that game digitally, but what about collectors out there? Collectors want physical versions of these games. It'd be a hell of a lot better to have physical versions of the game. So I don't know if going forward, if Nintendo is going to keep these physical versions going, or if we're just going to start getting digital. I really hope not. But this trend marketing that's been going on lately has been more digital than physical. So that's why I'm kind of turned off by it. I'm also turned off by these microtransactions because when we buy games as the consumer, we should get the full game. Not get the game with the system and then once we play it, there's you have to connect to the internet automatically, which why? I don't have a good internet connection in this house, so I'm screwed. Can't play the game online. So that would leave me out. And also the microtransactions, which is when you have to pay extra money for a suit or a car or some sort of skin in the game or a sword in the game. And you got to pay $20 for that, even though you already spent 70 or $60 on a game. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. And now they want $80 for that? No, thank you. As a consumer, we should not buy it. I've seen a lot of negative comments surrounding the Nintendo Switch 2. There's a lot of people that are not happy about the price point of Mario Kart World and games in general being at $80, especially when they were supposed to be at 70, now they're 80. And I've seen a few that have actually been okay with that price range. And I honestly don't understand why they think that that's okay. Especially when they have microtransactions in games. That's actually going to make you, as a consumer, pay more for your games. Even though you already bought the game. It's just not fair. So ultimately, I'm not going to pick this up. I'm good. I have an Atari 2600. I have a Sega Genesis. I have a Sega Saturn. I have a Sega Dreamcast. I have an NES. I got a Super Nintendo. I have an N64. I have a Wii U. I have a Nintendo Switch. I have all the Xbox consoles except for the Series X. I'm not buying that because I saw what has been going on with Xbox Series X. It's nice having backwards compatibility, but I'm not interested in the microtransactions. It's a turn off for me. And I'm not interested in having to connect to the internet. I should be able to get the game with the console, pop the game in, let it install, and me play the game. Not have to connect to the internet. And some of these games are doing that. When I bought Outriders on PlayStation 4, the game was online only. Like, what the freak? What the hell? No, thank you. Even though that game did interest me, it does look interesting for a looter shooting game. But it's online only, and the servers are probably not even active anymore. So, what a waste of $7. Yeah, so that's all I can really say about the Nintendo Switch right now and in general. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. It's going to release June 5th, 2025. I did see that there are a few other gaming channels out there that are talking about this. I know that RGT85 made a video recently talking about it. And I think there's some other channels, I don't know, maybe Metal Jesus Rocks will be talking about it once it releases, but you know, there's going to be a lot of talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 for sure coming up from people, from YouTubers, so be prepared for that. Some of them are excited about it, and some of them are like me where they're hesitant. I would be hesitant as a consumer because we should not be getting microtransactions in games. We should be getting the game in full, and we should be paying a reasonable price for the console itself. Even the price of the console is just ridiculous. They were selling the original Nintendo Switch for $299, $300. I got mine for $280, a little bit cheaper. So why is the Nintendo Switch 2 $450? It doesn't come with any games unless you get the one that's pre-installed Mario Kart World. So, and I think it's the same price if I'm not mistaken, or I could be wrong. I think it's the I think it's 450 if you get the one with the Mario Kart World game pre-installed into the system. But if you get the other version that comes with no games, then it's $400. But the thing is, you'll have to still buy a physical game anyway, so it's going to bring the price right back up. Stupid. You know what I mean? They think that they're helping the consumer out with a pre-installed game that is originally $80 for their price point. I think it's called MSRP price. I think that's the correct word for it. But really, honestly, I don't think that that's really much of a change because it's 450 um, versus the original, well, the Nintendo Switch 2 model without it. You're still going to end up paying more money when you have to buy a game for it. Whether it's online, through their Nintendo app, through the console itself, or if you buy it physically, you're still paying more money. So you'll end up being at about $500. I mean, that's a lot of money for a console. Even the PlayStation 4, when you got that, when it first came out, it was $400. Cheaper than the Nintendo Switch 2. The Xbox 360 was cheaper than that. It was only $300, I think, when it first came out. And the Xbox One, when that came out, I know it was $500 more than the Nintendo Switch 2, but Microsoft learned that after like 2 years of it not selling enough consoles, enough units to drop the price, and they did. They dropped it to $350 because they realized we're not selling enough consoles here. We're not making enough money. So they had to drop the price because the consumers were just smarter and wiser and not stupid. They were not going to pay that sort of price for the console, even if it did come with Titanfall or Minecraft. I know they had a few different bundles back then. So Nintendo, I really don't think that it should be at $450 for that console. It's a handheld and it's a, you know, console for the TV. I think that it should be more like $350. I think that's more fair. $349.99 for the consumer, not $449.99, and then have to buy another game, which will make them spend over $500. Okay, what about those poor families out there who like video games, but they have to decide? They're on a budget. They're like, do I get the new Nintendo Switch console, or do I get food and clothes on my back? Because $100 going to TJ Maxx or Marshalls could get you some shirts and a pair of pants or two, or going to Goodwill. There's no really any Goodwills left here, but going to Goodwill, you could probably find yourself some pants, as long as you're not big and tall like me. I'm a big man, so it wouldn't work for me. But that's just an example. So they would probably choose that over buying a console. You know what I mean? From a consumer's perspective, especially if they're a poor family and can't afford it. That poor family has a console, but it's like one of those old consoles, like a Super Nintendo or a PS2 or a Sega Genesis. You know what I mean? Because they can't afford to buy a new console. So that is another thing that would cause Nintendo to lose money. Because a poor family cannot afford it. They have to stick with what they have They can buy games occasionally, but for the most part, they can't. They have to worry about eating. They have to eat daily to survive, and have to have clothes on their backs to wear when they're out in public or when they're going to work. So honestly, yeah, I'd have to say for Nintendo, yeah, you missed the mark, man. $80 for games is just not gonna work. Okay, it needs to be 60 or less because the consumer is not stupid. The consumers, I'd say 90% of them are not going to pay $80 for a video game. It's just not going to happen. Even the PS2 days, it were $50. There were no 60, 70, or $80 for a game. Oh, it's just ridiculous. And the console price is just overpriced overall. $450, no. They're gonna wait. They're gonna wait like 2 or 3 years for the price to drop. For it to drop like $100 or $150 before they pick it up. I just know it. You'll see Nintendo. But of course, Nintendo is a big company, and I'm just a guy who provides gaming videos on a YouTube platform. So they won't listen to me. And plus, I'm not on the level of Angry Joe or the Angry Video Game Nerd or Metal Jesus Rock. So I know that they might hear them, but they're not hearing me because I'm at about 300 subscribers here. So I'm not as big of a YouTube channel as them. But I am part of the gaming channel scene here, and I just don't agree with it. I think that it should be cheaper, honestly. So those are just my thoughts and my opinions on the Nintendo Switch 2. What are your opinions on the Nintendo Switch 2? Do you have any opinions on it? I would love to know down in the comment section below here. Um, or do you not even care that this thing is coming out? I'd love to know your thoughts. Please leave them down in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching. God bless you all. Larry the Batman fan signing out. Peace.